So we're heading into Yantif. I want to mention just one or two things about Yantif, and then we're going to talk about Yantif in terms of marriage and traveling for Yantif and all that fun stuff. I usually am very, very makbid that we don't record this shir for obvious reasons, but I'm debating. I let Shmaya put the phone here. I'm debating just because I feel like some of the Yesaidas here are so important that if we have other chevra that could gain from it, it might just be like being Mainea Taiv Mi Ba'olav to like just holding back good from people to not record it. So we'll make a decision about that after. We'll see how feisty it gets. Just stama hashkafa. Going into Bein Hazmanim, I've said this before, but I just want to remind you because I want to remind me. Okay, when Yantif comes, and Bein Hazmanim, of course, is a very relative term. We have like 3 days off or something here. Okay, it's not 3 days, but we definitely don't have the month off that some of our friends have. I think the closer shmooze is Tuesday, a week from today. But anyway. Once we leave yeshiva and we go home and Yantif starts with all of the tumult of Yantif and the different schedules of Yantif and all the meals and davenings and the families coming in and out, once that happens, I'm talking now to you and then we'll talk about marriage. Okay, but just in terms of that, I just want to encourage everyone to hit the ground running. And what I mean by that is, I think you know me by now. I'm not going to sit here and say, make sure that you learn 43 minutes a day. And, I'm not going to sit here and work out a chart with you of how to do your Bein Hazmanim. I'm speaking to adults, and I trust you that you know where you're up to and what you need to do and how you need to live Bein Hazmanim. It's not like my fifth grader that's going to come home with a chart to check every day that she davened Hallel or something. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that it's pashut, you just don't think about it, it's pashut, that when that shift happens, that we're not in yeshiva anymore, it's a dramatic shift for us. It's different. We're with different people, we have a different schedule, and in a certain sense, our life turns upside down. And if we don't think about that before, then we're just caught by surprise, even though we've done it 10 times. We're just caught by surprise again. And there are certain nisyonos in being out there and being home and so on. And while, yes, I'm referring to technology also, but I'm also referring to getting along with my sister. And that old issue between me and my mother coming up again. And the guys in shul that used to be my friends. How many guys have that, The guys in shul that used to be my friends and now not so much because of A, B, or C. Because they went and became super intense, or because I became more intense than them. And now I'm back in shul, and it's a little awkward. And so on and so forth. It's endless amounts of changes that happen when we make that shift to going back for Bein Hazmanim. I want to encourage you to think about it before we go. Whenever you're leaving, just think about it before. Take a walk. The weather, Baruch Hashem, finally turned nice. Take a walk. Think about your break and make a plan to hit the ground running. And then when it happens, the first day is so crucial. Just because this has happened to me, and I'm sure it's happened to you, that you make a plan and then you just don't do it. It's amazing. We're so good at making the plan, but there's a certain skill of making the plan, and that gap between the plan and implementing it. To it's now. When I was thinking about it, I was thinking about this moment, I'm going to do it. You know why it's hard? Because it's breaking a habit. It's breaking a trend. I used to go home, and by the time I got home, I was so exhausted because I work hard because of yeshiva and college and so on. I'm very exhausted. So I finally get home, and when I get home, I'm wiped out. I really don't want anyone to bother me, so I'm hibernating in my room. And then my mother says, it's not a hotel. We have stuff that needs to get done. And so then I grudgingly go, and then that's what happened until now. But now I sat in yeshiva and I thought about it. And I thought to myself, like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sit down with my mother on the first day that I'm home, and I'm going to say, I am super exhausted, I need a break, but I know that Yantiv is coming. Could we just talk about what I could do over the next few days so that she doesn't feel like I'm just ignoring her? That's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to go home and just not do that. You know why? It's a little uncomfortable. So my chizuk to you, you will not regret it. No matter what you're doing, no matter who you are, no matter where you're going for Yantiv, make a plan and commit yourself to hit the ground running on day one of the plan. You'll have such nachas from yourself. You can accomplish things. It's just nice, accomplish things. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the Shalom Bayis aspect of Yantif. Yantif is a beautiful, beautiful time, and it's a family time. But when couples travel for Yantif, most young couples, until they have a few children, especially when it comes to Pesach, are not home for Pesach. So I'm going to focus on that stage right now of being that young couple, and you're traveling, and you're going to your parents for one part of Pesach, and to your in-laws for another part of Pesach. And for some of us, you're going to this side of your parents for your mother's family, and then there's the father's family, because not all of us are our parents married to each other. And it's complicated. Yantif could be complicated. Okay, I want to say this. I think it's important. It's not easy. And I want to dispel this myth from day one because it tortures families and makes a lot of lachatz in Klal Yisrael. It's not, I'm going to say klar, okay? It is not supposed to be even, the division between how much time you spend by the boy's parents and how much time you spend by the girl's parents. That is not meant to be even. And many parents measure with a stopwatch. 1 second. You came for us for the first days, but only spent 1 day of Chol Hamoed. But then you spend 3 days of Chol Hamoed by your in-laws and the second days of Yantiv. So next Yantiv, don't forget that you're spending most of Chol Hamoed with us. And it gets very technical. And I think it's very important, as men, it's very important to know what the standard and the expectation is. I'm saying this as I was also a young husband at some point in time. And I also am a father of girls who are married. And I'm also the father of a boy who's married. So, I don't know if anyone ever has a right to talk, but if anyone has a right to talk, I have a right to talk. Okay? Besides the fact of spending 25 years schmoozing with people. What a career. 25 years schmoozing. Okay? So, the girl's family gets your time more than the boy's family. That is the way it is. That is the mitzias ha'olam. There are exceptions, but that's the way it works. When you get married, you can expect to spend more time by your wife's parents than by your parents. It may be sensitive. You may have to explain this to them. You may have to ask an eitzah how to do this. But I'm just telling you the mitzias. That is the mitzias. That is the expectation. I have 3 married children, as I mentioned. One of my daughters chose to live across the street from me. So I cheated with that. Okay, that's a cheat. She lives an hour and a half away from her in-laws and about 4.5 seconds away from her parents. So I cheated. But either way, even if they lived in Pesach, I would expect to see her more often. My son, I'm very close to him. My wife is very close to him. For years, even before he was married, there was never a Yantiv menu made without a conversation with him. He was that guy in the family that we have some guys here like that. He was the guy in the family that would sit with my wife on the phone when he was in yeshiva and say we should do this meal, this meal. That would go well with that. I know for some of us that's a Chinese conversation, but he's beloved in my house. He's beloved. When he shows up, when my son shows up, it's like it's Sufostira in the house. Everyone's thrilled. But he comes to us less than he goes to his parents, than he goes to his in-laws. You know how upset we are about it? We're not upset at all. It might help that we're in love with her parents too. We love them. But it was an understanding. And I remember having a conversation with my wife about it, when he was getting married, before that first Yantif, reminding her, we're going to see them less than we see our girls. And my wife is like, I don't love it, but I know that that's the reality. And it's important to know that this idea of the measuring back and forth. Oh, I was just talking about you. And here he is. I was talking about that when you have a... There's a seat here. I was talking about... this was not planned, okay? And now I remember that we talked about that. I'll come today, but it was not planned. I was talking about that that the norm is you go to your wife's parents more than you go to your own parents. That's the norm. I told you that, right? That's the norm. It's not always easy. We're often more comfortable by our parents than we are by our wives' parents, very often. For many reasons, and maybe I'll get into those reasons. But it's just what we do for our wives. That's where they're comfortable. We're here to, as we've discussed in so many of our shiurim, we have an achrayus to our wives. We're here to help them to feel comfortable and to start to be in their comfort zone. And that's where we spend the time. Of course, our parents deserve time with us, and we deserve to spend time with them. But we have to not expect the scale to be even. If I let this share go out, and there are parents that will listen to it, I beg them to not measure. Your children will love you for not measuring. You will never lose out. Even if they spend more time by one, they will love the time by the one that doesn't measure more. And there's that freedom. When you just buy a parent's house, and the parent is just chilled about it. When you're here, we love that you're here. If it's hard for you to be here, you don't have to be here. Okay? My son is sitting here now. He can tell you that there were times that I would specially call him and tell him, you might think we're expecting you to come, but I know your wife is expecting, or she's busy with something. Please don't feel pressure to come. We love when you come, but please don't feel pressure. And it's not because we were in a fight. It's because I know that pressure. And I know that that's not something that... And by the way, I'm a sneak also. I know that my son likes coming to me even more because he knows that if he called me and said he can't come, I'd be like, I totally understand, we're going to miss you, but I totally get it. See, he's never coming because he feels the pressure to come, ever. That's cool. I like that. You know what else I like? I like that when my kids are by me, I know they're there by their own free will. It feels good. I feel like I'm seeing my children and my grandchildren because I was the place that they wanted to be. Not because they were afraid I wouldn't talk to them for 6 months if they didn't come. That's a little bit less of a nachas, I think. So I think it's important to have that hasaga, just to relax. Let your children come because they want to come. Try to serve good food. Try to make it comfortable for them and for their children. Try to be flexible. Okay, this is also something important. Again, I'm going to get back to you in a second, but just, Mitzvah Hashem, one day you'll also be the parents of those couples. Try to be flexible. Your married children may... Okay, again, I've been talking about this before I had married children, but now I really feel it's chus to talk about it, because at least I could practice what I preach, and I didn't realize when I give this speech that one of my children would actually be here. They could really hold my feet to the fire to make sure that what I'm saying is actually how I act at home. But your married children, it may be time for the meal, and it's a yontif morning, and you're getting ready to make kiddush or to wash, and the food is in the oven, and your son or daughter comes over to you and says, start without us. And you're like, what kind of thing is this? The meal is starting. Where are you? And your son and daughter will not explain why. And then they won't show up for the entire meal. And as you're serving dessert, they'll come down and they'll be like, is there something to wash on? And our job as parents is to just let it go. Maybe we forgot what it's like to be that age. And that there's stuff going on, and we don't know. Maybe something went on. Maybe something going on between the husband and wife. Maybe there's something they're worried about with the kid. Maybe something upsetting happened. Maybe it was just very emotional. Maybe, who knows? It could be 1,000 reasons. And if it's important for us to find out about it, we'll find out about it. And if it's not important, we won't. But we show support by being flexible. Okay? Adkan, harassing parents. Let's harass the children a little. Okay. There are certain things that happen when you take your wife to your parents. And certain things that could happen when your wife takes you to her parents for Yantif that could negatively affect Shalom Bayis. And it's important to be aware of them because you can handle them and not fall into those traps. Okay, let me talk a little bit first about taking your wife to your parents. Okay? Now, obviously this conversation is an almost impossible conversation to have with a group because I don't think there's any one of us that has the same parents. And every set of parents that we have is different. Some of us are craving and looking forward to spending time with our parents. Some of us are dreading spending time with our parents. And many of us have things that we're craving about it and things that we're dreading. Some of us have siblings at home or siblings that will also be coming. And we're looking forward. We haven't seen our siblings in a long time. It's going to be so geschmack to sit with our siblings. Some people don't have that. There's a lot of different dynamics. So I'm going to speak about one or two with the hope that I'm speaking to people that are intelligent and nuanced enough to be able to be mavin davar mitoich davar, to be able to understand how to apply that to your unique situation. But here's one of the big subtle challenges. I'm jumping right into something subtle. One of the subtle challenges of bringing your wife, your young wife, for some of you maybe your kala, to your parents' house is that we sometimes forget how defined and different each family culture is. The vibe in your parents' house is going to be dramatically different than the vibe in her parents' house. How do I know that it's going to be dramatically different? Because it's always dramatically different. Because every house has its unique tone, its unique thing. And when you go back to your parents' house, you're entering a world that's your country. You know this world. You know the language. Now, I'm assuming both sides speak English. But there's still a language. There's still a language here. There's a certain language. There's a certain slang. There's a certain understood family way of talking. Okay? I'll give you a number of examples of things that could really become contentious from it, and then maybe we'll go even more subtle. Your family might be a little bit irreverent and old school when it comes to talking about different kinds of people, South Americans, African Americans, that type of thing. And maybe your parents are more old school, they use more Yiddish phrases and things like that. And when they talk about, people, I'm not going to do that because I'm in polite company, but they talk about people, or maybe there's a grandparent there. Okay, the world today became a very politically correct world. And I advise everyone to be politically correct, by the way. Not to say words that are offensive to people. Not to speak in ways that are offensive to people. I don't see what we gain from it. Avada, we should speak in ways that are pleasant to everyone. Of course, we should speak with pleasantness. But not everyone in our family knows that. And maybe we grew up in a family, a more Heimische family, a more, old school from a different country, very passionate about things, whatever it could be. That in the house it became okay to use certain terms. Now you married a girl from Teaneck who grew up not only not using certain terms, but believing that certain terms are absolutely, absolutely offensive and inappropriate. And by the way, I wouldn't disagree with that. In today's world, there are things that are inappropriate and offensive. And she's coming into your country, and you maybe don't speak like that to her. But you're very comfortable in that world. And she's losing her mind from the way that your family is talking about things. She's losing her mind. And you're like, what is the big deal? That's how my family talks. Can't you respect the way my family talks? It's important to know. You brought her into a strange country. There are strange customs there. Yeah, it's your life. It's your normal. And you're married to this woman. So you're like, of course she's going to be able to slide right in. Of course she's going to feel totally comfortable. She will not feel comfortable. She will not feel totally comfortable. I love my daughter-in-law very, very much. But I know that when she comes into my house, it's not the culture she grew up with. I try to be as sensitive as possible to that. And by the way, I'm not even trying that she should feel totally comfortable. I'm not trying, that's not the goal, because she is a human being that grew up in a different world. I'm trying that she should feel welcomed and loved and understood and connected, but it's going to be maybe even many more years before she, and by the way, she never said a word. She's so super pleasant and easy to be around, and you would think she grew up in my house. But that doesn't change the fact that I know people. And I know that in her house, the way she grew up, things were different. I know that. That's the way it is. And it's important to realize that when you're impatient with your wife because she's not shtelling to the way that your family vibe works, it causes tsar, causes pain. Now, some of us end up marrying girls that grew up in homes that are very, very, very similar to ours. Like, and in my son's case, actually, it is fairly similar, like culture-wise, fairly similar. Sometimes in like certain communities, like certain types of communities that are like tight-knit communities, when a boy and girl from the same community marry each other, so there's a lot of stuff that you understand because you grew up in the same type of home. But even then it's true that there's something different. You know what else becomes very difficult? Humor. Jokes. Now, as it is, I could give it an hour-long share about the difference between the sense of humor of men and the sense of humor of women. Okay? As it is, okay? I have this image in my mind. I have 6 brothers. I have this image in my mind of me and my brother sitting around the table by some simcha or something, and our wives are like floating around somewhere in the room, and we're joking and talking about the past and making jokes, and we are falling apart laughing. Okay? Falling apart. There are tears streaming down my cheeks just from laughing. Okay? And our wives are not cracking a smile. They're like looking at each other like, who are these people? They don't get the jokes at all. They don't find it funny. When you bring your wife into your parents' house, there are things that are just like, yeah, we appreciate, we know, we have a line. We do that. She doesn't know this stuff. And she's not comfortable there. And she feels a little funny. So it's important to realize in a certain sense that you are like the ambassador of a different country to her. And you're her liaison. You're her connection to this world that you brought her to. You're that connection. And it's important to be sensitive with her. A lot of times a wife comes to you, to your family, and conversation starts by the table, and everyone knows what everyone means, and everyone knows who we're talking. Oh, I met so-and-so. Everyone bursts out laughing. She has no idea what you're talking about. And she'll politely smile, but she has no idea what you're talking about. Your job as a young husband is to turn to her and say, so-and-so is someone who used to be our neighbor, and he took us to Besdin because we had a tree that went over into their yard. It's always a little awkward when we meet them. Oh, now I know the history, thank you. Try to keep away from Lashon Hara, but it's your job to be that meturgaman, to explain to your wife these connections. And it's also important, women go through this, and we're going to talk about the flip side of this also. Women go through this. They go to their husband, to his house, and he gets lost. He's like, she's clinging to him because she's in a strange country. But he's at home. Sometimes she doesn't even know where he is. He's just hanging out. He's in his element. His brothers are there. His sisters are there. It's a geschmack. He's back with his family. He's loving it. And she's feeling left out of it. She's feeling alone. And sometimes, not only that, and this is a very key thing, and it happens on both sides, sometimes we change a little bit. We go back to being part of that home, even though when we left, maybe we don't, because married people end up leaning into each other. But when I go back to my parents' house, I'm back in that world. And my wife even feels maybe a little bit uncomfortable, like, are you the guy I married? Who are you? And things like that become difficult. And it's a few sensitive pieces also is like, it's Yontif night. It's Yontif night. It was a long meal. It went late. Everyone's tired. Your wife wants to go to sleep. But you're schmoozing with your family. You're loving it. When she says, I'm going upstairs, I'm going to sleep, stop talking to your family. And go upstairs with her. Don't say, okay, I'll be there soon. and send her up alone. She's in this strange country. She has one right to be here, and that is that she is your wife. And when you're sitting and hocking and enjoying with your family, and she's like, I want to go to sleep. Like, maybe she wants to go to sleep with you. Maybe she wants to spend those few minutes with you. Maybe she wants to process the day with you. You can have a conversation with her at a certain point, or you can work through. That's part of a relationship between a husband and wife. If you say, I'll come with you, maybe your relationship will steig to the point that she'll be like, no, it's not a problem. Enjoy your family. I'm going to sleep. Maybe that will happen. But that can't be the assumption. The assumption has to be that when the end of the day, my wife wants to go to sleep, I am going with her. At least to be there when she goes to sleep. To schmooze with her, to do some kind of a bedtime routine, to do something. But to be there so that it's not just that she went to her in-laws and she lost her marriage.
Is that idea of, let's say, right before going up, asking your significant other that you're going and you go up with them, is that applied both ways, especially being that we're supposed to spend more time by the wife's family, or is that something that really because you're the man, it's something that you're supposed to do, but really the other way
I'll get there. It's a good question. I'll get there. Okay? Let me, we'll flip over to her family soon, okay? But this concept is something that's very, very important, and it might mean, and this is true on both ends, but it's true uniquely when you're going to your parents, it might mean also taking a walk with her, going out with her. She needs you. She needs you alone, not as part, she doesn't want to feel like, oh, what am I doing here? I'm married to someone here. In this world, she doesn't want to feel that way. She wants to feel like he's my guy, he's my connection to this strange planet. Okay, so it's super, super important. If you're aware of it, your wife will have a pleasant time by your parents, and it will be much easier for her to go. You may have to do some damage control. Your mother or your father may make a comment that in your wife's world is a very, very, very offensive comment. I have this mashal in my head. It wasn't such a mashal. I'm not going to tell you all the details. But I have this mashal in my head from years ago of a daughter-in-law sitting with her mother-in-law expecting, and her mother-in-law, in a very complimentary way, telling her that she thinks, wow, you're really, really big. You look like a cow. You like that? And the husband's sitting there, and the wife smiles, goes, yeah, the doctor said, who knows, maybe I'm having twins. But in her heart, she's like, did my mother-in-law just call me a cow? What on earth? And the mother-in-law thought she was being funny or cool or something. In some world, that made sense for the mother-in-law to say that. She didn't mean it in a bad way. But that husband is going to go away from that conversation with her and say, I am so sorry that my mother said that. And you don't look like a cow, you look beautiful, and you're carrying our baby, and I have such a karas hatov to you, and you look amazing in the yantif, maternity yantif clothing that you're wearing, and I'm so happy that you got it, and you're really going to make sure, because you're going to have to do some damage control. You may be in a family where your father will make a comment at some point, like, anyway, women are not so important. It could happen. Could happen. We come from different worlds, Your wife is sitting there. She did not grow up thinking that women are not so important. Or even in terms of learnedness. What happens if you're by the Pesach Seder and your father is saying a Dvar Torah and your wife has a question? And she says, I don't understand. Why can't whatever? And your father's like, women don't have to pay attention to the learning part of the Seder. We're talking on learning here. Okay, it's his defense mechanism because he has no idea how to answer her question. Of course, you married a smart one, but you're going to need to be supportive of her in that situation. You're going to need to do that. Now, things could get more difficult when there is conflict and tension between parents and the daughter-in-law. I'm not sure that we have time for that today. There's a different mahalach that you need to take to be able to stand by your wife. And that complex navigating between your wife and your parents, which is never a fun place to be. But I'm just talking about the norm. I'm talking about a regular yontif. We're going to have yontif soon. We're going to have a regular yontif. This is what happens in a regular yontif. Okay, so that's when you're by your parents. And you'll have a great time. And it'll be nice for you. But you're going to spend that time alone. You're walking home from shul, your wife comes to meet you in shul, and the whole family is walking back together. Maybe think about separating from the crowd a little bit, spending some alone time with her. You know, when you're a chassan and kala, you're like, hello, of course I'm doing that. You know, but when you have, two kids in a stroller and one kid walking next to you, and life is busy and so on, and you love spending time with your family, and you live with your wife 24/7, but now you're with your father or your brother or your whatever that you haven't seen in ages, you may need to remind yourself that she needs your attention, and she needs your being neschashev with her. And that's important, and parents also have to be sensitive to that, to not to always be pulling them in. Come with us, we're going on a Chol trip. Come with us. No, we're going to take our own car. Why take your own car? What a waste of gas. Just come with us. No, let them take their own car. It's good. It's good. That time in the car is healthy. It's good for them. Okay? So that is that's going to your parents. I know you've been dreading this. Let's talk about going to your in-laws. Okay? The emes is that, again, assuming things are relatively healthy, going with your wife, the term I use is that your wife is taking you to her parents, but be that as it may, going to your in-laws for a yontif can be an unbelievable experience. And if you're smart, you can use that time as a way to connect to her family, and you'll find an amazing thing, that the more you connect with her family, the more your shalom bayis will be better. Because she will love you for loving her parents. And she will love you for loving her siblings. And a lot of times guys don't see that need to connect with his wives. I married you, I didn't marry your whole family. Wrong. Okay? When you marry a girl, of course she's your wife, but she comes with a family, hopefully. She comes with a family. And if she has a decent relationship with that family, then you are being such a smart husband and such a good husband by really developing ksharim with her family. If you could become close to her parents over a yontif, or even her siblings, it's marbe in how she feels about you. And that's very, very, very important. And it's appropriate to have hakaras hatov to her parents. Her parents gave her to you. It's appropriate to feel a certain sense of hakaras hatov and a certain sense of connection and wanting to be part of it. A lot of times guys at a certain age, they're not so interested. Like, okay, I have this girl. I never signed up to be part of this family. Can I please have your daughter and get out of here? But it's not appropriate. She is a product of her family. And it's precious to her. Her family is precious to her. And she doesn't need the torture of being pulled between her husband and her family. I have a very, very special schus that many of my wife's siblings call me for eitzes or hadracha with things. I'm the oldest son-in-law and the oldest son on both sides. So, not all of them, but it happens to be many of my wife is the oldest, many of my wife's siblings are much younger than her, and they'll call me for advice about things. And I noticed over the years that the impact it has on my wife to feel like I'm taking care of her sister, I'm taking care of her brother, I'm there for them. It has an impact. And when you sit by a yontif table and you're schmoozing with her dad, and you're just sharing some jokes with him and having a good time with him, yeah, it's very nice. You're building a connection with him. You are building a connection with your wife. She's shepping nachas from it. She's loving it. And it's very, very important. And I don't want to underestimate the power of going to your in-laws for Yantiv. I was joking around before that you dread it, and a lot of guys do dread it. But try to think about it in that way. It's a way to bring a new dimension to my relationship. And it really, really, really does that. That being said, when you go to your in-laws, now you're in a strange planet. And now it's going to bring out to you the differences. You're going to notice more than ever the differences between you and your wife. And you're going to sometimes even feel like things are going to be so different that you're going to have this feeling of like, seriously, did you grow up here? You really grew... I don't like, and you may be at a loss to believe that your wife grew up in a place that's so different, and certain things may seem and will seem very strange to you. Certain minhagim, certain ways that they talk to each other, certain things that they do, certain hakpadas, certain idiosyncrasies that you'll just be like, oh, this is so strange. But it's important to recognize, first of all, that another person's, this is the only time that you have this. Because your family is different than my family. You come to me for Shabbos, like, it's very nice, and then you go home. Okay? But it's different when you marry into a family. And you're there as a son-in-law, you're absorbing it in a whole different way. And you're coming into contact with the different culture of your wife's family in a much stronger way than when you would spend time by your Rebbe, or you had a friend that you were close to, used to hang out in his house. It's a much more powerful way. And there are things that may be hard for you. They'll be different. Some of you maybe grew up in homes where your parents, where your mother always had it together. There was always fresh linens on the beds, and the house was always spotless, and things were together. When guests came, she would set up the room beforehand, and there was maybe even some bottles of water and nuts on the counter, because she's classy like that, your mother. And then you married a girl who's a superstar girl, who has a superstar family. But her mother is more the type that after the meal on Friday night, she's like, oh, grab some linen from the linen closet. I think you're sleeping in the third bedroom on the right. And then you're going in there and figuring it out yourself. Rabbi say, yeah, if I was advising parents, I would try to tell them to make their children feel comfortable. I would do that. But it's not a right or wrong or bad or a good thing. It's a different vibe. It's a different kind of family. Also, you don't know how overwhelmed your mother-in-law might be, or how many other things she's dealing with. And maybe it's easy for your mother to do because maybe your family. I'm making up scenarios, but because I've dealt with so many different hundreds of different kinds of families, but I'm just using it as mashal. Like maybe your family's a little bit more well-to-do, and your mother told the cleaning lady earlier in the day to set up the room, but your mother-in-law never had a cleaning lady in her life. And she does everything herself. And it was Pesach time, and she was peeling carrots the whole day. Maybe. It's a different culture. It's not your culture. Or it could be the other way around, by the way. It could be you grew up in a more scrappy kind of home, where you're figuring it out yourself, and you walk into your in-law's house, and you're like, I do not like that I have to take off my shoes by the door. I'm an adult. I would like to walk around with my shoes on. But in many homes, everyone... The Gadol Hadar comes to visit, like, Reb Chaim Kanievsky, thank you for coming, please take off your shoes. There are families like that. That's their culture. Let's not waste our time judging it. That's their culture. That's what they do. We will get used to it. But to be just aware of that, sometimes husbands waste so much time and so much shalom bias criticizing her parents for being different than his parents. Don't do that. Her parents are going to be different than your parents. They're going to be different sometimes in ways that you love. Maybe your mother-in-law will end up being more approachable than your mother is. That could happen. Maybe your father-in-law will be more knowledgeable than her father is. That could happen. There are maybe things about her family that you wait to go there for Yantif. But there will be things that you'll be like, not used to this. You may have brought up in a family that when the main course is served, after that dessert is served, and then you bench and the meal is over. And you're waiting to do that, and you're tired. And then you go to your in-laws' house, and dessert, that's just the beginning. Then they bring out cups of tea, and then they put stuff out on the table, and they spend another 2 hours talking after that, and you're losing your mind. Yeah, that's a different culture. It's a different culture. So that's, and also I'm advising parents to be chilled out when their children are not ready to start the meal with them, or their children daven somewhere else, or something like that. If you were parents, I would tell you that when your son-in-law comes to you for Yantif, it's a big pride to have your sons-in-law daven with you. It's a big pride, but I would say, chill out, relax. Like they're dealing with a lot. Traveling with some kids, or even just a couple going away for Yantif, it's a lot. Let them daven wherever they want. Let them do what they want. That's what I would tell the parents. But not all in-laws are like that. And sometimes your father-in-law part of his whole experience. He's been waiting all year. He gave his daughter to you. He's waiting all year to be able to show his friends in shul that his son-in-law is here. Go to shul with him. If he would ask me, I would tell him not to be makpid. But maybe he is makpid, and we have to respect that. Go to shul with your father-in-law. Try to daven in his shul. You don't understand what you're doing for him. We're men, we don't wear our emotions on our sleeves. So he's going to come to shul and he's going to be davening next year. You're not going to realize that he waited the entire year to be able to say, no, my son-in-law's sitting here, I'm sorry. And to be able to bring over to the Rav, this is my son-in-law, Lander College, Roy Sachs's chair, He's waiting the whole year to be able to do that, And give him that nachas. Let him do that. It's kedai to do that. And if your in-laws are makbid that the Suda starts at a certain time or runs a certain way, try to the best of your ability. Try to be with the program. Try to dance to the music that's there. Try to participate in that as much as you can, because it's your wife's world. And the more you can connect with that world, the more you're connecting with your wife. Now, one thing that's interesting... Okay, so now, Shlomo, I don't want to forget your question. So now it's Friday night, and you're falling apart from exhaustion. And you would like to excuse yourself and go to sleep, and your wife is still there schmoozing with her family. There are a few dynamics that are different in that scenario, okay? First of all, the way our families are, you leaving the table to say goodnight is a little bit more noticeable than when you're by your parents and your wife leaves to say goodnight. Because it's accepted by us that the wife is going to take care of the kids, or that she could be tired, whatever. She's home more, so you'll be in shul tomorrow, she'll still be there. It's like if she excuses herself, it's less noticeable than if you excuse yourself. I would advise guys to try to hang out by the table if they can. Like you were asking, how do I say goodnight? I'm saying mechatesi, you should say goodnight. I would advise guys to hang out with their in-laws. Again, everything within measure, within reason. Your father-in-law wants to schmooze with you until 3 a.m. You may have to figure out a way to say, I got to go to sleep. You may have to figure out a way to do that. But within reason, try to go with the program of your in-laws. It's kedai to try. Again, in-laws that are very flexible and understanding, super. But it can't be our expectation or hakpada. Families run a certain way. If you are in a situation where you want to go to sleep, so that should your wife also walk upstairs with you and so on, if I was sitting in front of a room of girls, I would be telling them, just tell your parents you'll be down in a minute and walk up with your husband. I would tell them that. But I'm not sitting in front of a room of girls, I'm sitting in front of a room of boys. And I'm telling you that we are the husband and we can carry this. And if our wife chooses to walk up with us, or if it's comfortable and easy to say, hey, you want to just come upstairs with me for a minute and then you'll come back down? It's okay. It's a wonderful thing to ask, and maybe even healthy for her. Go up with her, it's just to be able to have that intimate good night for a minute, and then she can go back to her family, but just to connect. Just to have that moment of connection. It is a nice thing to do. But I'm speaking to the husbands. I'm speaking to the men. I would say it's also our job to be a good sport about it if she doesn't, and to be understanding that she was just swept back into her world, and she's there and she's plugged in. And part of being by your in-laws, this is the flip side. If it sounds unfair that I'm being demanding on both ends, thank you. It is unfair. The reason it's unfair is because you are the husbands, and husbands carry their wives. We carry the achrayas. So when we take our wives to our parents, we have the achrayas to not get so absorbed in our family that our wife feels like she lost us. And when we go to our in-laws, we have the achrayas to be patient when our wives get absorbed into their families. It sounds unfair. Wear it with pride, Rabbi say. That is what husbands do. Okay? Now, if you kind of have a conversation with your wife beforehand, tell her I heard a share. He explained different cultures and things like that. It sometimes could be hard for me by your parents' house. I'm not used to it. Could we try to stay in touch with each other? Awesome. Super. Mahadrin mena mahadrin. To be able to have that type of a back and forth with your wife, that you could discuss this with her, and you could tell her, I'm so excited to spend time with your family, but sometimes I feel like, where's my wife? So can we try to figure something out? That would be awesome. And the two pieces of advice that I could give you, practical advice, is number one, I would say, don't underestimate the power of taking a walk. Okay? Don't underestimate that. When the meal is over, go for a walk with your wife. You're by her family. If the two of you could agree to do that, if you have little children, I've been told that many grandparents don't mind taking care of their grandchildren. So I've been told. Okay? So if you have little children there, she could tell her parents, we're going out, could someone watch the kids? Is there a sister there or someone? Usually they'll be fighting over your kids. Okay, maybe it's just my grandchildren because they're the cutest grandchildren in the world, but yesh lahaniach that your in-laws will think that your children are the cutest in the world too.
When does that walk happen? Before or after? Is there timeline-wise?
No. I am putting out a sefer with the dinim of that walk, but no. It's the point is you want it to be a time that's smooth to walk out. That you're not like cutting short the party, but it's a time that you can spend. In my family, by the way, my married children will do it before the meal, not after, because the meal starts almost on Matzah Yantif. So by the time I get home from shul, so my married children already know by the time I get home from shul, they already had half of Shabbos. Am I wrong? They'll take their walk and go visiting and hang out, and they'll do their things beforehand. It's one of the hard things about coming to me for Shabbos. They're good sports about it. So that's really something you have to figure out based on the family. But number one, don't underestimate the walk. Go on the walk. Okay, the weather is nice. There's no reason not to. Even if it's a little chilly, I would say get out there. Get out of the house with your wife. Touch base. Talk. She may want to vent also, by the way. Okay, sometimes it's not easy for her to be back with her family. She's like, did you hear what my mother said to me? She said I look great. I thought that was a good thing. One second. I don't understand, because us men are clueless. Like, she said I look great. It means that she realized that I thought that I did it. Then why would she think that I thought that I did it? Probably it's because she saw something that made her think that I thought that I did it. And then she said I look great. And you see, it's so insulting. Okay, so hold on. I know it was a share klali. But she may need you to be there for her. About things that you don't even understand. But she may need you to be there for her. So those walks could be great for that. And the walks could also be great for you to feel connected with her again. Because it is hard. I married into a family where there are 8 sisters. My wife is the oldest. Okay? They all look alike. Is that true? They all look alike. Okay? When I was first married, I would walk in to my in-laws' house after shul, and I'd be like, I know that one of these are my wife. One second. Let me figure out which one it is. And one of the things that we started to do was and this is my next piece of advice, and I'm telling you, this is gold. You can take this to the bank, okay? When you get home from shul, find your wife and touch base with her privately for 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Just touch base with her privately. It just will give a certain moment of, I know it's all of this, but it's still only just me and you. There's a certain v'nismach ani v'ata that remains, even though we're in the tumult of the family. It's true, by the way, on Yantav, but it's also true in the middle of a family simcha. Vinny, you just had a family simcha, like the tumult, this family, right? When your brother got married, right? What? Oh, the chasna wasn't yet? When is it? Oh, okay. So you'll see. So Adarabah. So you'll see. Maybe we'll sneak you in before. We'll get you engaged. Yeah. Okay. So, okay. Wow. I've heard that date. Anyway, so I think you might miss someone's wedding. Anyway, but when during a wedding season, it's mamish like that also, right? Because there's so much tumult. Those of you that have had it, like a sister getting married, a brother getting married, and then you're coming in with your wife, and there's Sheva Brachas, the Chassan, is that those moments that you could spend, just you and her, are precious. It doesn't have to be a lot. I want to teach you a yesod. I'm going to end with this yesod, okay? Very, very often, wives will say to me that they feel like their husband doesn't have time for them. Okay, he's too busy with his work, he's too busy with his college work, whatever it is, he doesn't have time for me. And it's very painful for them. And I have found, I'm just telling you from the limited amount of maga that I have had with families, I have found that it's very rarely about the quantity of time. And it's very much about how present the husband is for his wife. A husband could be super, super, super busy. But he spends, when he's home for a half hour, he's only there for his wife. Nishdavas Seren, that's for sure, by the way, during the week, that you're putting your phone down for that time. Okay? Because I Adhaya had this week. Adhaya, the amount of Shalom Bayis Tsar that's caused by guys and their phones, okay? A woman was once telling me that she's not sure who the wife is, her or the phone. And she tells me he even goes to sleep with his phone on his pillow. Okay? So be very, very careful about that. But this type of thing where a husband is very busy, the moments that you spend with your wife, phone away when it's not Shabbos Yantif. Of course, if it's Shabbos Yantif, there's no phone. But I'm focused. I'm not in 10 places. I'm not thinking about what I have to do next. I'm focused on my wife. This is the person that I love, that I'm devoted to, that I'm here for, that I carry. This is my wife. And when I'm with her, I focus on her. And when you're by your in-laws or by your parents, and you have those moments, those one-on-one, those v'nismach ani v'ata moments, where it's just me and you, it might be very, very short, but it could also be very, very sweet. And it could carry her for the rest of the time. You come home from shul, you're by your in-laws, and you say to your wife, can we just talk privately for a minute? And you go to the room that you're in, or you walk outside for a minute, or whatever it is. Okay, you spend a moment together, okay? And you focus on how you're doing, how was your morning, did you end up eating something, did you make kiddush yet? I'm not talking about Dvarim Ha'im Dim Beru Ma'isha. I'm not saying that you should try to solve the shidduch crisis, okay? I'm just talking about, just touching base. I missed you in shul, whatever it is. When you walk back in, the entire rest of the meal that you're there and you're interacting with family, your wife feels connected to you. It's a completely different experience. Most girls can't articulate what I just said. They won't be able to put it into words. But if you do it, if you do it, you will see how powerful it is. Don't lose that connection. From time to time, over the stay, a few minutes alone. Now, by the way, we talked about having that conversation beforehand with your wife. Even if you use this shir as a springboard for it, this is a great thing to discuss with her before. Because some wives could get so lost in their families that you'll come home from shul and you'll be like, could we spend the 5 minutes privately together? She'll be like, why? Like, because we're married? But she'll be so lost in the bahala of the yantif that she may lose sight of that. So, but we're marrying good girls and smart girls. They just sometimes need that communication. So sit down with her before yantif. Say, we're going to your parents. I am so excited to go to your parents. However, you can blame it on me if you want. My Rebbe taught me that if we could keep our own personal connection there strong, we'll enjoy the yantif more and we'll gain more from it. So I'm going to, from time to time, say, could we spend 2 minutes alone? I would love if we could do that, even if it's just for a hug. But I just want to be able to spend a few minutes with you alone. It will just help us stay connected when we're with 1,000 other people. Okay? This Rabbi says is going to be the last Tuesday morning share until after Yantif. I have this thing that Rabbanim do of selling chametz. So I'm going to have to be focusing on that the next few days. I mean, I will be here until the end of the week, and I'll discuss with my share about next week. But certainly Tuesday morning, I think at this time is going to be the Mashgiach Shmuz. And I wish all of you, the Zman is not over. I'm just saying it because I'm ending this share. But I wish all of you an amazing, amazing Yantif. And I know that there's a lot of guys here that are not yet in this Parsha. But many of you who are not yet in this parsha have siblings who are. And I advise you to watch the Yontif. And you'll think about the things that we talked about, and you will appreciate that in the context of just watching the Yontif, and it will be machazik you even more that when the day comes, be'ezer Hashem, bekarov, that you're going to your in-laws for Yontif, that you'll feel fully empowered to be able to do it, with tremendous simcha. Yashar Koach. Okay, I'm comfortable.